Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. We've talked before with this gentleman about safety on the roads when it comes to big rigs, cargo tanks, a lot of those big vehicles that you see on our roadways, freeways, expressways, everywhere. There are major safety protocols in place. And we talked about that over the past couple of weeks. We also dug into cargo tanks. Literally today, we're going to dig into them, go inside them, and what happens in that confined space and how dangerous it is in terms of inspecting those cargo tanks that are on the roadways, traveling with fuel and other types of liquids and substances could be dangerous. His company is DOT Training Solutions. Matt Freeman is back with us. How are you doing today?
Hey, done well. It's always good to be back, Steve. Always forward to having a good podcast and seeing what we can talk about today. We've got a great subject here with Doug Vineyard here.
Yeah, tell us about Doug. Welcome, Doug. Matt, tell us who this is. This is somebody that you work with, right?
Yeah, Doug works with Highway Transport. He's one of my customers. We work well together, and we've been talking about confined space for quite some time now. It's something that Doug's very passionate about, and we were just together at the National Tank Truck Carriers Association in Charlotte, North Carolina, a few weeks ago, and it was a big subject during one of the committee meetings, and so I thought it'd be great to have Doug talk about what's going on with that in the world and why we really need to look at it and why it's such a big deal right now.
I feel like this is a podcast episode of Mike Rowe and Dirty Jobs, right? Where, he used to do things like that and go into confined spaces that potentially could be dangerous. But Doug, let's center on that. These tanks are dangerous when somebody goes in one for an inspection, right?
They are. And not only do we enter for inspection, we actually enter for cleaning too afterwards to the integrity of the barrel. The shippers put constraints to make sure they're barometrically and odor free and dry. I actually operate 7 tank washes across the United States and 8 shops, so I get it on both sides. Very unique industry. A lot of people don't realize that there is a job that exists of this nature in the bulk chemical world. We have to clean these tanks every time they come back, basically, unless you get approval to top load, and they have to be inspected, wash certain different washes for certain chemicals. A lot of different business models. It's different in Chicago per se as it is in Baton Rouge. Wow. So this is a real job, and it's a hard job, and it's a job that I've done for 20 years before I entered into management, and I'm very passionate about it. Very.
Wow. Lots of questions here. So first off, when a tank comes back, and let's say it's going to transport the same substance, anything, gasoline, whatever it is, does it have to be cleaned again, or is it only when the substance that it's transporting is being changed?
Gasoline does not have to be cleaned at the time. But if you say you have a latex trailer, latex paint, Sherwin-Williams, whatever you buy at Home Depot, we actually haul that. Wow. It has to be clean because the integrity of the shelf life is based on bacteria. So we have to clean in between each of those loads, even though it's the same product, for the simple fact is you don't want to introduce any kind of bacteria. And when we clean with water-based chemicals, and water carries bacteria, and moisture is the breeding ground for bacteria. So bacteria affects the shelf life on latex paints, for instance. So they have to be cleaned in between every time they're loaded and unloaded. So,
my gosh, we just opened up a whole new door of awareness here, because I didn't even think about bacteria. I'm thinking about rust and corrosion and things like that. Wow. Okay. So, Doug, take us into a tank. What's that like when you have to go into that confined space? What are some of the responsibilities that need to get done?
The responsibility is a lot of our customers unload with nitrogen. Nitrogen will not support life, a nitrogen atmosphere. And why I've got so passionate, in the last 12 months, there's been 9 deaths in tank trucks. It shouldn't be. We're in 2024. We have some of the best safety practices now than we ever had when I started cleaning tanks. So that confined space here's the analogy of this. they have to go in and inspect it. A lot of times they have to go in and scrape old latex out of them. They make the latex better now, so it's harder to get out of the tank because your paints and stuff are a lot better than they are. So they'll clean it, spin it for 45 minutes, and a lot of times, they'll have to go in and do a barrel inspection to make sure there's no adhering products or loose products and on the latex or what have you. Here's the issue. That space, if it's unloaded with nitrogen, it will not support life. So I'm going to lead into this. Nitrogen, as soon as you breach the atmosphere, it starts affecting your brain. It makes you feel invincible. So the split second it absorbs through your skin and you inhale it, it starts taking away all the oxygen in your blood. So that gives you a different mindset. So they have to do testing from bottom, middle, and upper, and the tank needs to be purged, cleaned, and then tested. You'll have pockets in these tanks, even after it's purged with water, that could have the presence of nitrogen. So with that being said, that's the danger. Now, from a tank cleaner's mindset, as I've wore those boots, they can't see it, hear it, or smell it. And I want to put it into an instance that everybody can understand. We have procedures set in place that you have to follow step by step. And you can't get in a hurry. You have to follow it step by step to keep everybody safe from even breaching the atmosphere. You cannot breach the atmosphere. So we have meters and things that's set in place to do that. So if it's followed, it's as safe as anything else. But I'm gonna put it in an analogy like a seatbelt. I grew up in the 70s, so there's a lot of vehicles manufactured without seatbelts. So now that is an industry standard because the government and the public has said we're not going to tolerate it. People need to wear their seatbelts. The same analogy has not been passed along to the tank washers. These people, they'll drop something in that trailer and they will make a bad choice because they're in a hurry. It's just like getting in a car, after you left your house and forget to put your seatbelt on. As soon as that first man goes down, there is horror stories. His buddy's sitting up top watching him. He's going down. He's down. There's been an instance where there's 5 to 6 people went down trying to save their buddy because they go into the instinct. It's that quick. Does that sum it up?
No words. This is just and Doug, the deaths that you talked about this year, is that related to nitrogen? What seems to be the common theme here?
It's in her atmosphere, whether it be CO2, nitrogen, or a dirty tank. There's a breakdown in the steps. And, my passion here is to get everybody in the industry together and say, we're not going to tolerate bad decisions. We can sit and talk about what we can do better to make them use, but the mindset and the culture should be, we as the industry, we're not going to tolerate the bad decisions. No, pressure is self-perceived in the tank cleaning industry. Nobody's asking anybody to go in a tank without doing the proper steps. Pressure, no pressure. There is a such thing, and it still exists, as stop work. We've got to understand, and we can't dictate it and rule it and police it. And, we have to change our approach about it, and we got to change our culture, because when these incidences happen, they don't talk about it because you got lawyers involved, you got OSHA involved, you got all these people coming in. They want to know how it happened. And, they're going to get you over a checkbox on a confined space permit. But at the end of the day, most of these instances are because somebody made a bad choice.
Yep.
Yeah.
How do we change that mindset? How do we get people talking about it and educating one another? And that's my job as the national chair of the Tank Cleaning and Maintenance Council. We had a roundtable, and I wanted to get everybody together in a casual conversation. Do not point fingers. How do we get better as the peers and the leaders of this industry to let everyone know we're not going to tolerate bad decisions? We're not asking anybody to do anything that's going to be unsafe. I have a zero tolerance for violation of confined space program. I would rather you be living and breathing and walk out of my facility without a job is to be tucked out of there on a meat wagon. It's that simple.
One of the things here, just Steve, real quick, is there's policies and procedures that go in before you get into a tank. So every every facility who conducts confined space, as you know, is going into the cargo tanks, has to have a policy, and they have to follow that policy. And when OSHA and some of the others groups come in and look and see what happened, they're checking the boxes. Did that a particular individual follow the policy? Was everything followed there? And some of the things that happen is what Doug's talking about is training. These guys, need to make sure they're following those policies are put in place for a reason for those safety measures. And when you get complacent or you get in a hurry, like Doug just said, you're thinking with instinct instead of safety side. And you go dive in. Next thing you know, you got 1, 2, 3 people down because of their instincts and not following the policies. So there's some of the big passion. I'm right behind Doug and the team there, and it's focusing on that. It's a very serious thing right now, and Doug named 9 deaths. I can name 4 particular ones, but not to go into details because of coming back not following policy. It just happens.
It's very clear based on what we're hearing today how this can quickly escalate. One man dropped his cell phone, jumps down. I'm just going to grab it coming right up.
Mm-hmm.
Then something happens. He's disabled down there. Jimmy is in the tank. I got to go down. Mike, throw me a rope. And now, you see the chain of what's going on there. Doug, what's the protocol here? Anytime you go in a tank, is it a respirator, hazmat suit, all of that? What is the standard, or does it vary depending on the tank, the space, and the cargo?
Only confined space, and see that's the thing. You can't get no one to talk about whatever. I'm not sure what everybody does, but I can tell you what we do. We actually had an incident in 2007, and we implemented that when you go down, you actually take a reading with a meter. You purge the tank, clean it. You take a reading from the top, bottom, middle, each vent cap, top, bottom, middle with a drop tube. Then you force air, and then we have air supplied respirators. The tank vendor puts on an air supplied respirator, lifeline, grab a buddy. You go down and he walks that meter up and down that trailer and clears it before he's allowed to do any work without the supplied air respirator. That covers us. That's just us doing that. That's not an OSHA standard. And nowadays they got the Zisto cameras, which is a great thing. But it doesn't. You're never, ever going to eliminate people from going into confined space because work has to be done. So I want to look up for a solution for a greater good. I want the mindset out there. We're not going to tolerate this. We're not going to tolerate bad choices. We want people. I don't want to be the best in the industry. I want to look back and say, we did it right. We did it safe.
Sure. Would you say OSHA should have that standard? If you could have, the magic pen, type it, whatever, and that's the standard, you first go in with a respirator and whatever equipment is needed and take those readings along the way before anybody else goes in the tank with or without a respirator. If you could get that done, that's the way you would do it.
I'm not so much sure that is another step of the safety procedure. Sure. It's still here's what I will tell you. All that stuff can still be hanging on the rack over there if they make a choice not to use it. Think about that. It's not our choices.
Well, oh yeah.
Choice in the mindset of that person that's going to do that task.
100%.
I can sit here. We can debate it all day long.
Yeah.
And we can give them everything that we possibly can to make them safe, but we can't make them use it.
100%. Right back to your point with the seatbelts. As far as I know, every state has a seatbelt law, if not most of them. If you don't click it, you can get a ticket. You're breaking the law. But that's your choice. That's your choice.
Of the three of us, let's be honest. How many of us get it, sometimes forget and go down the road and we see a cop and then we're grabbing for it, spilling our coffee all over our lap? Think about that.
I'm gonna tap out.
Okay.
Or have you ever done this one? You realize that you don't have the seatbelt on, and then you see the cop and you do one of the grabs, like you're scratching them. So don't have to admit anything.
My mindset, the first step is getting the people on board, the folks that's doing the job.
Yep.
So number one, they don't see what we do in the background. They're not at Tank Truck Week. I've got a big passion to recognize tank cleaners and tank technicians, and that's that is on my bucket list, and it got approved this last week. Tank technician and tank cleaner of the year. I want to recognize the hard work and the things that they do, and that we start changing the culture. We change the people. I'm a big believer. You fix the people, you fix the rest. It's not about me. All I can do is direct and guide. I want to change that mindset. I want everybody in my racks to understand that I do care about them. We as an industry care about them, and we want them to do it the right way.
Mm. It is the mindset, because you could see some of the men say, "Oh, I'm going to jump in, get it done." Flipping the mindset to say, "I'm not going in there. Got to be safe." It's got to shift
Stop
that.
and think. Just stop and think.
But look at the seatbelt law. That started in the 80s. I want to say mid 80s. That's how long that took for the mindset. And again, to the point, not everybody uses them all the time. Matt, what are your thoughts here this far into what we're digging into?
Well, Doug's agree. We've had some very passionate conversation about this, and I'm 100% behind him. I really, I'm all about safety, right? And training is what I do about 100% of the time, and consulting with that. But it's about change. I agree. Change the mindset. It's that I go back to always using muscle memory. You got to get these guys used to doing a routine, and not just used to doing it. Don't get complacent. Use the routine you're taught. Like Doug's saying, we got to change that mindset. You don't just think, oh, hey, I got to go jump in there real quick. It's only going to take a second. It don't take even a second for something that bad to happen. If we could change our mindset, like if the company policy says they have to put the jumpsuit on, okay, they need to put the jumpsuit on.
Yep.
Okay, if they're supposed to wear a respirator or whatever it is, they need to do that. Again, certain things aren't always required depending on the atmosphere of that tank and what's been detected. But there are things that seep into these, how should I say that, Doug? Pockets.
Yes.
And that's where some bad stuff could be. The whole tank might be clean, but there might be one air pocket there that it missed, and that's when something bad can happen. You don't know. So the mindset here is change that to more of a safety mindset, to take caution on whatever they do. And if we can do that, like Doug's saying, when people start changing, the word's going to get out. People are going to start doing things. Kind of like the seatbelt rule. Now everybody's automatic things to put the seatbelt on, even if you're supposed to or not. We want people to know that, hey, I got to grab the gear. That's how I was taught. Don't just go jump in a tank real quick. And dropping a cell phone and little things like that is not uncommon to hear about, because people like taking pictures. Oh, I see something bad, I'm going to stick my camera in and take a picture.
Wow.
What happens? They drop their cell phone. That is a great example, and that happens probably more than we know, right, Doug?
It does, and it's the simple things, and it's your permit's good for 2 hours. Here's, everybody says tenure. Well, I'm going to tell you something. I've got regions that tenure brings bad habits because they're smart. They adapt to the business model, and they think it never changes. Give you 2 examples here. This emulsion load, which is latex. I know the customer. I've been to the customer. The air unload. It's fine. I was jumped down in here. But guess what? Driver showed up this morning. Their compressor was broke. They had to use their nitrogen compressor to unload it. They unloaded this load with nitrogen, which didn't hurt a thing on the shipper, the customer's end. And law does not. We do not have a law in place that if you put nitrogen in a tank, you have to tag it. They don't tag them. So it comes back. I've done this for 35 years. They just aired it off. I just dropped my phone and I'm gonna jump down in there and grab it. Boom, done. It's that simple. It's the things they don't recognize. And I was sitting here thinking about before this call, and it's just, I want to say this. We start scraping their trailer. We've done cleared that trailer. The trailer's a little warm because these tanks are usually about 100 degrees. It's 40 degrees outside. He parks it out on the yard, and I was walking around on the yard this morning, and I looked. Driver's backed up there with his stack right at the dome lid. That tank's sitting in a cooler. He's regenerating his truck. Guess where all that CO2's getting vacuumed into that tank as it's cooling off? That had already been inspected and had work done in it And that old school guy's going to hook a truck to it, pull it back in there and say, well, I've already done it. I've done everything I'm supposed to. I just carry the meat. It's got CO2 in it. It's the little thing. If you change that mindset culture, it's no different than training people that's going to war. They know they're fixing to get shot at, so we train for it. We change their mindset and feel good about what they do, feel proud about what they do. And that is the root of what we need and the foundation of what we need to start getting everybody on the same page. The industry should not tolerate bad choices.
It's a great point with the tenured employees, because the mindset there, I'm sure, is I've been doing it 30 years and I never had a problem. I'm just going to jump in.
Yes.
And there's where it begins. Tell me about that committee that you're part of, Doug.
I'm the national chair of the Tank Cleaning and Maintenance Council for the NTTC, which is a national tank truck. That is all the bulk shippers in the industry, and we only make up 5% of the whole trucking industry, but we're the first ones to put raws in. We haul raw materials, and 70% of the plastic in your car comes from isocyanates, which we haul. So we're the first start of production. This committee was put together, I forget, back in it, and every 2 years you're nominated committee. I actually have a vice chair of the maintenance council and a vice chair of the cleaning council, and they're all from different companies. The tank cleaning and chemical industry is a very small, tight-knit industry, and we all know one another. All the tank washes were built by carriers way back when, and then you had certain groups that buy them up and, commercialize them, but they were built to the business model at that time. So this committee, we address issues like the FMSA comes across, and they make a rule on the maintenance side that we don't really agree with. We as a committee and a council get together and we could test that rule, go to Washington or whatever. EPA mandates, the environmental, because that's a big deal in the tank wash part of it, and OSHA as well. OSHA adopts. There's no book on tank cleaning. So they adopt our standards back in the 70s, and then they just write guidelines around it. So basically, this is one of those small industries that nobody knows anything about. And OSHA works with us, and they put guidelines with that. Here's the problem, and I want to get this out. Chemical tank truck drivers deal with hazardous material unloading and loading every day. Tank cleaners deal with hazardous material, cleaning tanks in confined space every day. And it is not considered skilled labor. So you don't get funding. My focus is the mechanics are considered skilled labor because the mechanic's a mechanic, but a tank truck mechanic's a little different. They have to enter confined space. So I'm working with a lot of advocacy members right now I want tank cleaning and tank truck drivers. That should be skilled labor with the entities that go around it. That way we get funding to train like anybody else, and we change the mindset. Just like the seatbelt law.
Wow. What an eye-opener today. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can't imagine how that's not skilled labor, considering everything that's going on, every aspect of that job. Matt, your job is to make sure that these companies that dispatch these trucks are following safety protocols. And that's why you align yourself with people like Doug. If there is a company like that that's listening, watching, or maybe somebody has a question about any of this, how do they find you, Matt?
Yeah, they can reach out to me. Go to my website, pull my information at dottrainingsolutions.com. You can reach out to me personally on my direct line. It's 573-416-8203. Or you can call me and get me on my direct email. It's matt@dottrainingsolutions.com. We're here to help guys. We work a lot with Doug and on any questions they have as one of our customers. And even if Doug wasn't my customer, I'm still going to help him. So that's what we do. It's about safety. And we want to make sure that everybody's going down the road being safe. No different. You got to put your seatbelt on. Okay. It's you're driving a large rig. If it's a box trailer or a chemical trailer or gasoline or propane, depending on whatever you're hauling, it's all dangerous. It's big, and it's our job to make sure people are being safe out there. And all the way to the driver, to the piece of equipment itself, to the tank washes, and to the the guys at the inspections. I mean, it's a full circle that we want to make sure these guys are being safe out there, and anything that my company and my associates can do to help, that's what we're there for.
I have to tell you, we started this conversation with these words: confined space, chemicals. Right away, sounds dangerous. Have no idea what was involved here and how deep this goes. And you're both essentially in the trenches or the tanks. And thank you for helping spread the awareness about something that is so important. I appreciate you both for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Steve. Take
We'll
care.
be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.